Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another Top Cut breakdown video. Today we have 4 tournaments to go over with you guys, 2 of which in the US and 2 of which are actually in Europe, which is pretty cool. We don't always get the info for the European events, but this time I do have it to go over with you guys. That being said, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a Dragon Ball Super video. And if you guys want to compete in competitive events just like this and you want to try and get your game up, check out the Patreon down in the description below. You can read the articles there, see where my head's at competitively, as well as inquire about coaching if you're interested in that. That being said, let's get started. All right, the first event we're gonna go over the Pensacola, Florida regional event. Again, when you're thinking about Florida, a lot of the local Florida guys are gonna go there, and a lot of the Florida players are some of the best in the game. So it's always gonna be just a little bit more of like a higher stakes event, usually, not always, but usually. So with Pensacola, we have first place Blue Baby. Now you'll notice that there are 2 Blue Baby in this top 8, which is pretty interesting. There are definitely a few decks that didn't quite make the list here, and just from looking it over, we're definitely not seeing the typical red that we normally do, and Blue Baby is a pretty tough matchup for red, especially in game 1. Red does have a few really solid cards they can side in against blue, and Blue Baby in particular. 2 of those would be Broly Crown Retribution and Vegito Unison of Might. Being able to resolve either of those cards is definitely going to be really solid against Blue Baby, but if red players weren't prepared or maybe running into a lot of bad matchups, that could definitely be what lended to Blue Baby's success here, taking the 1st and the 5th slot here. But moving down the line, 2nd place, Red Blue Cooler Mill. Definitely another bad matchup for red, believe it or not. Like, red just kind of thrives on putting these low cost guys down onto the board, and red can generally draw a lot of cards in general, especially if you're considering King Piccolo. King Vegeta can also do it as well with like switching gears Vegeta and all the natural filter they just have throughout their deck. So Red Blue Cooler Mill is very similar to Blue Baby, not in the sense that like it just floodgates all the time, but it does you know, have a really solid stall win con that can beat red pretty well. And again, those same side deck cards red has are good against Cooler Mill, like the Broly Crowns and the Vegito Unison of Mights are pretty solid against Cooler, but maybe these red players just weren't really expecting a whole lot of control in the room, so that could have led to their downfall. But anyways, Dark Broly coming in at 3rd, definitely no surprise there. And if red is pushed out, definitely gonna expect to see Dark Broly in the top 8. Probably more than 1 slot, to be honest, but still it did make it. Then we have Sin Aggro coming in at number 4, just another sneaky deck, a really strong aggro deck, which is pretty interesting to look at because we're seeing in the top 2 more so control here, right? And then going down to 3rd, Dark Broly, arguably mid-range, teetering a bit towards aggro, and then you have just like full-on Sin Shenron aggro combo, drop Cell Xeno turn 2, make your opponent hate their lives, right? Blue Baby once again, and then Makika Boro Wish, definitely a deck that is starting to possibly find its place in the meta. It's been consistently topping for the past 2 or 3 weeks, so it is nice to see that it seems a bit more consistent here. A starter green Frieza, which is pretty cool. Now I think this deck definitely can do well in a control environment. Like, pure green hand control is a nightmare for Blue Baby, and yeah, Deborah Ritual at hand is now a card, but the thing with that card is like, do you actually side it? Do you expect to go up against Cell Surge? Do you expect to go up against OG Broly? Do you actually expect to go up against Starter Green Frieza? A lot of players will take that risk and just not side the card, and they will probably get punished for that. So definitely pretty cool to see a deck that we haven't seen in a long time get top cut here. And then a Blue Yellow Gotenks. Surprised, honestly, that it's not just Mecha Frieza, but maybe this is one of the reasons why Mecha is not present in this top 8. If you're playing Gotenks up against Mecha, they have to resolve a lot of extra cards, so you're going to be keeping up draws just as much as they are, which is kind of cool. So if you play Gotenks, just run a day of like, you know, 4 Mecha Frieza rounds, probably going to be feeling pretty good about that. You might also do pretty well against Blue Baby because you know, at least 8 of their negates are also going to be in the form of extra cards. Moving on to Columbus, Ohio regional. I do believe this regional made their 64 player cap, which is nice. It's always cool to see that a regional like this meets the maximum number of players. Just shows a lot of interest in that area for the game. So King Piccolo coming in at 1st place. This event here obviously shows a lot more red, and you'll notice no Dark Broly. Violent Rays being the #1 card potentially that definitely shuts Dark Broly down. But yeah, 2 King Piccolo coming in 1st place, and then a King Vegeta following underneath that. So definitely a lot of red here, and 2 Mecha Frieza. So this top 8 looks a lot different than the Pensacola top 8, right? And it looks like that event definitely teetered a lot more towards control. This event here pretty much looks like all mid-range, to be honest. Like, I would classify Mecha as mid-range. Depending on if you're playing the Bean version, you can be pretty aggressive, but if you're not playing the Bean version, you're definitely going to teeter more towards control. King Piccolo, pure mid-range. King Cold, a little bit more like beatdown mid-range. Soul Striker and Blue Skillless Gohan, definitely mid-range. And then King Vegeta is probably the most aggressive deck of the bunch here. But even though like there's a lot of talks about ban lists coming out and whatnot, I do just want to reiterate that I think the format is in a really great spot. Like, there's still a lot of deck diversity, and a lot of decks can do well that you wouldn't really expect. We saw a lot of those just a second ago, and we'll see more as we go on to the European events. So going into the Spain regional, I didn't get a whole lot of info about this one, but I did get the top 4 here. So we had another first place Blue Baby, right? And this top 4, at least in terms of play style, is definitely a lot more diverse, right? So we have Blue Baby representing control, we have Reboot Gohan representing that pure, just unadulterated aggro, and then we have Mecha Frieza and King Vegeta repping that, like, you know, mid-range, teetering a bit towards aggro, teetering a bit towards control, depending on the variants of the decks themselves. Like King Vegeta, if it was red-green, could have been very pure aggression, but mono red can be a bit more mid-rangey. And again, Mecha with Bean can be a lot more aggressive. Mecha without Bean can be a little bit more defensive and control-y. So yeah, another Blue Baby win though, which is definitely pretty interesting. Now, you'll want to keep in mind that regions definitely do vary in terms of what's popular and what players perceive to be strong. Like, I'll never forget that when Red Blue Soul Striker was topping, I want to say during last format, during set 12, it was always really surprising to see it in the US, but European players were telling me that it was very popular in their region. So you're going to definitely see some different meta trends there. This definitely looks, you know, to be in line with what we would expect to see in the States. It's just kind of interesting that Blue Baby has done so well this weekend. But anyways, moving along to the France regional, we have Sin Aggro coming at first. And I think if you're playing Sin Aggro and you just have a pretty lucky day, like seeing yourself Xeno every single turn too, which is incredibly unlikely, but possible all the same. If you have a day like that, it's going to be pretty easy to win the tournament, especially if it's, I'm not sure how many players or how many rounds it was, but if you just have 4 good rounds or 5 good rounds, you can have a pretty good day there. King Cold coming in at second though, which is pretty cool. King Cold has definitely established itself as a pretty consistent top deck. It's definitely making that, you know, somewhat minor stand for green. King Piccolo and another blue yellow Gotenks. Once again, very surprising that Mecha is not found in this top cut, but blue yellow Gotenks is, which is a pretty interesting phenomena. King Vegeta definitely a consistent, not the best red deck. I'd say King Piccolo over the past several weeks has actually been more represented than King Vegeta. That could be due to the fact that switching gears is hard to come by, but nonetheless, we have Dark Broly, definitely expect to see it. Beerus Ramp though, Beerus Ramp, such an interesting strategy. There is a website with these top 8 deck lists that I will have down in the description below, and you can check out the Beerus Ramp deck, man. This guy is trying to ramp up there and just, you know, kill people via an alternate win con, which is always actually really interesting to see. And then we do have a Majin Vegeta here just representing some more crazy aggro. So overall, again, I want to reiterate, like, we are looking forward to a really big ban list. There are some strategies that are very strong, but Rogue can still do well if you're a, you know, an experienced player with the deck, if you've gone through your matchups, if you have your sideboard figured out, stuff like that. There are some things that I would like to see, you know, reined back on, pulled back in, and I will talk about that throughout the week. I already talked about my thoughts on Dark Broly in yesterday's video. Check it out if you haven't seen it. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.